The cargo ship moved slowly through the dark space near the Orion Nebula. Its name was the Wanderer, and it was old but strong. Inside, sat in the pilot's seat and watched the stars through the window. He was a tall man with short black hair and tired eyes. He had been flying ships for 15 years, ever since he left the Earth military. Behind him worked on a broken machine. She was the ship's engineer, a small woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. She had known for 10 years. They were not lovers, but they were closer than family. "How much longer until we reach the station?" asked without looking up. "About 6 hours," said. "We can rest after we deliver the medicine." They were carrying medical supplies to a small human colony on the edge of known space. It was simple work, but it paid enough to keep the ship running. Liked simple work. He had seen enough war and death in his military days. Now he just wanted peace. But peace was not what the universe had planned for him that day. A loud alarm suddenly filled the ship. Red lights started flashing. Hands moved fast across the controls. "What is it?" Ran to the front and looked at the screen. "A ship," said. His voice was calm, but his heart was beating fast. "A big one." It came out of nowhere. On the screen, they could see a massive cruiser. It was 10 times bigger than the Wanderer. Its design was strange and beautiful, with curved metal and glowing lights. Knew that ship. Everyone in the galaxy knew ships like that. Empire whispered, "What are they doing here?" The Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. They controlled hundreds of planets and thousands of ships. They were an old race, proud and strong. They looked down on younger species, especially humans. To them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk among the stars. A voice came through the communication system. It was cold and official. "Human vessel, you have entered restricted space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your destruction." And looked at each other. They both knew they had no choice. The Wanderer had no weapons that could fight a cruiser. Running was impossible. The bigger ship would catch them in seconds. "Powering down," said into the communicator. "We are not resisting." 20 minutes later, soldiers entered the Wanderer. They were tall, almost 2 meters, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. They wore beautiful armor that seemed to flow like water. They moved with the pride of people who had never known defeat. The soldiers searched the ship and found nothing dangerous. Just medicine, food, and 2 tired humans. They put metal chains on its hands and took them to the cruiser. Inside the ship, everything was clean and bright. The walls were made of some kind of white stone that glowed softly. Had been in many ships in his life, but he had never seen anything so beautiful, or so cold. The soldiers took them through long hallways until they reached a large room. It looked like a throne room from old Earth stories. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat a woman. No, not a woman, a princess. Had never seen a royal before. Princess was different from the soldiers. Her skin was a deeper blue like the ocean at night. Her hair was long and white, falling past her shoulders like snow. Her eyes were gold, bright and sharp like a hunting bird. She wore a dress made of something that looked like liquid silver. She was beautiful. She was also clearly very bored. "So these are the humans," said. Her voice was soft but carried easily through the room. "How disappointing. I expected something more interesting." An older stood beside her throne. This was Ambassador Myra, her advisor. "Your Highness, they claim they did not know they were in restricted space. Their navigation data seems to support this." Waved her hand like she was pushing away a fly. "I don't care about navigation data. I'm tired of this journey. I'm tired of looking at stars and empty space." She looked at with her golden eyes. "Tell me, human, do you know who I am?" Looked back at her without fear. "You are Princess of the Empire, third daughter of Emperor. I've seen your picture on news broadcasts." Smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "Good. You are not completely stupid. Then you know that your life is in my hands." I know that you stopped my ship for no good reason, said calmly. We were just delivering medicine to sick people. We meant no disrespect to your empire. The soldiers around the room moved their hands to their weapons. No one spoke to a princess like that, but raised her hand to stop them. For the first time, she looked interested. You are brave, she said, or perhaps just foolish. Most humans shake and beg when they stand before me. I've faced death before, said. It doesn't scare me anymore. Stood up from her throne and walked down the steps toward him. She was tall, almost as tall as him. Up close, she smelled like flowers from some distant world. She studied his face like she was reading a book. I have heard stories about humans, she said. My people think you are weak, small, unimportant, a young race with no history and no future. She tilted her head. But I see something in your eyes, something different. Said nothing, he just waited. Walked in a circle around him like a hunter looking at prey. Then she laughed. It was a cold, musical sound. I have an idea, she said. A game. I am so bored and you are so interesting. She returned to her throne and sat down. I have a champion. His name is the Unbroken. He has fought 500 battles and won them all. He has killed warriors from every species in the galaxy. Felt her blood go cold. She had heard of, everyone had heard of. I challenge you, human, continued. Fight my champion in single combat. If you win, I will release you and your ship. I will also grant you one wish, anything within my power to give. She smiled that cold smile again. But if you lose, you become my property, my servant, forever. The room was silent. Everyone was looking at, waiting for him to beg, to cry, to refuse. Instead smiled. It was a small smile, calm and confident. I accept, he said. Grabbed his arm. No is a monster. He's 3 meters tall. He kills people with his bare hands. But just looked at her with peaceful eyes. Trust me, he said quietly. Then he looked back at, when do we fight? His golden eyes were shining now. For the first time on her long, boring journey, she felt excited. Tomorrow, she said. Rest well, human. It will be your last night as a free man. The soldiers took him away to a holding cell. As they walked through the bright hallways, was shaking with fear and anger. Why did you do that? She demanded. We could have found another way. We could have escaped. Sat down on the simple bed in their cell. He looked out the small window at the stars. There was no other way, he said. And besides, I meant what I said. Death doesn't scare me. He looked at his old friend with warm eyes. But I'm not planning to die tomorrow. I'm planning to win. Stared at him. How can you possibly beat someone like? Closed his eyes and leaned back against the wall. Humans have been fighting impossible battles since the beginning of our history, he said. We're good at it. That princess and her champion have no idea what they're dealing with. Outside the cell, Princess stood in the shadows listening. She had come to mock the human to enjoy his fear, but instead she heard something else, something that made her feel strange. She walked away silently, her silver dress flowing behind her. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. News traveled fast on the cruiser. By morning, everyone knew about the human who had accepted Princess' challenge. Soldiers talked about it in the hallways. Servants whispered about it in the kitchens. Noble families sent messages to each other, excited about the entertainment. No one believed the human could win. They talked about how quickly would kill him. Some bet on how many seconds the fight would last. Others wondered if the human would cry or beg before he died. It was all a big joke to them. In their small cell, and had not slept much. Had spent the whole night trying to convince to find another way, but he refused to change his mind. You're being stupid, said for the 100th time. This isn't bravery, this is suicide. Maybe, said. He was doing simple exercises on the floor, stretching his muscles. But I've been in situations like this before. In the military, we called them no-win scenarios. And what did you do in those scenarios? Smiled, we won anyway. A guard came to bring them food. It was simple but good, better than what they usually ate on the Wanderer. Ate slowly and calmly, could not eat at all. "I need you to do something for me," said quietly, so the guards outside could not hear. "Can you get access to the ship's computer system?" Looked at him with surprise. "Maybe. These systems are advanced, but they're not that different from others I've worked with." "Why?" "I need information about how he fights, what his weaknesses are. Every warrior has weaknesses." Nodded slowly. This was something she could do. This was how she could help. "I'll try." That afternoon, Princess came to visit them. She entered the cell like she owned it, which she did. Two guards stood behind her, but she did not seem to need them. She looked at with those golden eyes, curious and amused. "I wanted to see you before tomorrow," she said, "to understand why you are not afraid." Stood up and faced her. "Why do you assume I'm not afraid?" "Because you don't act like someone who is going to die. You act like someone who is going to a business meeting." Laughed softly. "Maybe I've just had a lot of practice hiding my fear." Sat down on the only chair in the cell. She looked out of place in the simple room, like a diamond in a pile of rocks. "Tell me about your people," she said. "Tell me about humans." "Why do you want to know?" "Because I don't understand you. My people have been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. We have seen hundreds of species. Most of them are the same. They fight, they conquer, they fall, but humans are different. You are so young, so weak, so small, and yet you are everywhere. You spread across the galaxy like water spreading across a floor." Thought about this for a moment. Then he started to talk. "A long time ago on Earth there was a battle. 300 soldiers stood against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. Everyone knew they would die. But they stood there anyway because if they didn't, their families would be killed. They fought for 3 days. They killed thousands of enemies before they fell." Listened without speaking. "That's what humans are," continued. "We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. But we don't give up. We don't stop fighting. When we're pushed into a corner, we become dangerous." "Pretty words," said, but her voice was less mocking than before. "But words won't save you from." "Maybe not, but I have more than words." Stood up and walked to the door. Then she stopped and looked back at him over her shoulder. "I almost hope you survive tomorrow," she said. "You're much more interesting than I expected." After she left, let out a breath she had been holding. What was that about? "She's trying to understand us," said. "She's never really met humans before. We're just stories to her, pictures on a screen. She doesn't know what we're capable of." "Do you think she'll let us go if you win?" "She'll have to. They take their honor very seriously. If she made a promise in front of her people, she has to keep it." That evening managed to access the ship's computer system. It was difficult and dangerous, but she was good at her job. She found what she was looking for, reports on previous battles. She came back to the cell with fear in her eyes, but also something else, something like hope. "I found information about," she said quietly. "He's from a species called, they're natural warriors bred for fighting. He's 3 meters tall and weighs about 400 kilograms. He can lift a small vehicle with his bare hands." "That's not very encouraging," said. "Wait, there's more. I watched recordings of his fights. He wins by using his strength. He grabs his enemies and crushes them, or he hits them with his huge weapon. But here's the thing, he's slow. Not very slow, but slower than a human, and he always fights the same way." Leaned forward, interested. "What do you mean?" "He expects his enemies to fight him directly, to try to match his strength. Every species he's fought has tried to be stronger than him, and of course they all failed." Eyes were bright now. "But humans don't fight like that. You know how humans fight." Nodded slowly. "We fight to survive. We use everything we have. We don't care about honor or fairness. We just want to win." "Exactly. Has never faced someone who refuses to play his game. He's never fought a human." Smiled. It was a real smile this time. the smile of a man who sees a path through the darkness. "What about the arena?" he asked. "What's it like?" Pulled out a small device she had stolen. It showed a map of the arena. "It's big. There are pillars throughout made of stone. The floor is uneven in some places with raised platforms and lower areas. It's designed to look impressive, not to be practical for fighting." "Good, I can use that." They spent the rest of the night planning, told him everything she had learned about fighting style, asked questions, looked at maps and thought carefully. When morning came, was ready. He had not slept, but he did not feel tired. He felt sharp, focused, like a blade ready to cut. Guards came to take him to the arena. They put chains on his hands, even though he was not going to run, hugged him tightly before they separated. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Don't you dare die." "I won't," he promised. As they walked through the hallways, could hear the noise of the crowd. Thousands had gathered to watch the fight. They were cheering and laughing, excited for the show. The guards led him to a preparation room near the arena. They removed his chains and offered him weapons. There were swords, spears, axes, things had never seen before. All of them were beautiful and deadly. Looked at them for a long moment, then he shook his head. "No weapons," he said. The guards looked at each other with confusion. "Are you sure human will have a weapon?" "I'm sure." The guards shrugged. It was the human's funeral. In another preparation room was getting ready. He was exactly as terrifying as the stories said. His body was like a mountain of muscle, covered in thick skin that was harder than leather. His face was flat and brutal, with small red eyes that showed no mercy. He wore heavy armor and carried a massive blade that most humans could not even lift. He had heard about the human who would fight him today. He had laughed when he heard the news. Killing a human would be easy. It would be boring. But the princess wanted entertainment, so he would give her entertainment. Maybe he would make the death slow. Back in the preparation room, closed his eyes and took deep breaths. He thought about his life, his years in the military, the wars he had survived, the friends he had lost, the promise he had made to himself long ago to never give up. He was not fighting for himself today. He was fighting for the Wanderer, their little ship that was their home. He was fighting for every human who had ever been called weak or small or unimportant. He opened his eyes. A horn sounded. The doors to the arena opened. It was time. Walked forward into the light. The crowd's cheering turned to laughter when they saw him. He was just a man in simple clothes, with no weapons and no armor. He looked like a child compared to the massive arena around him. On her throne high above, Princess watched him enter. She noticed that he was not shaking. He was not crying. He walked like a soldier walking into battle, calm and ready. For just a moment, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Doubt. Then the other door opened and walked into the arena. The crowd went wild with cheering. The champion had arrived. The fight was about to begin. The arena was huge. It was built to make warriors look small and crowds look impressive. White stone pillars rose from the ground like the bones of giants. The floor was made of polished rock, but it was not flat. There were raised platforms, shallow holes, and uneven surfaces everywhere. Thousands filled the seats above, their pale blue faces turned down to watch the show. Stood on one side of the arena. He looked up at the crowd, at their laughing faces and pointing fingers. He looked at the pillars, the floor, the walls. He memorized everything. This was his battlefield now. On the other side, walked forward. Each step shook the ground. The champion was even more terrifying in person than in the recordings had shown him. His skin looked like stone. His red eyes were filled with hunger for violence. His massive blade caught the light and shone like a second sun. High above, Princess raised her hand. The crowd fell silent. "Today we witness a challenge," she announced. Her voice carried across the arena, clear and strong. "The human has accepted my wager. He will fight my champion, the Unbroken. If the human wins, he earns his freedom and one wish from me. If he loses, he becomes my servant forever." The crowd cheered. They loved this. To them, it was not a real fight. It was a comedy, a joke. The human would die quickly, and they would all laugh about it later. Looked down at. Their eyes met across the distance. She expected to see fear now, real fear, the kind that came when death was close. But she saw only calm determination. She dropped her hand. The fight began. Wasted no time. He charged across the arena like a mountain learning to run. His blade cut through the air with a sound like thunder. He expected the human to freeze, to scream, to try to block. Did none of those things. He moved to the side. Not a big movement, just enough. His blade hit the ground where it had been standing, cracking the stone. Before could pull it back, was already running toward the nearest pillar. Roared with anger. No one ran from him. He chased after the human, his heavy feet pounding the floor. Reached the pillar and spun around it just as arrived. The giant's blade hit the pillar instead of. Stone exploded into pieces. Used that moment to move to another position. The crowd stopped laughing. Something strange was happening. Attacked again and again. Each swing was powerful enough to cut a shuttle in half. Each swing hit nothing but air, pillars, or ground. The human was never there when the blade arrived. Was not fighting, he was dancing. He used the pillars as shields. He used the uneven ground to change direction quickly. He never stayed in one place for more than a second. Was strong and deadly, but he was also slow and predictable. Could see each attack coming before it happened. 5 minutes passed, then 10, was breathing hard now. He had never fought this long before. His enemies usually died in the first minute. This human was like smoke, impossible to catch. In her throne leaned forward. Her golden eyes were wide. She had watched fight many times. She had never seen him look tired. "What is this?" Ambassador Myra whispered beside her. "What is the human doing?" "He's not fighting," said slowly. "He's fighting the arena. He's using everything against the champion." Knew he could not keep running forever. He was getting tired too, but he had a plan. Every time he moved past, he was watching, learning. He saw how turned, how he recovered after a swing where his armor had gaps. It was time to attack. Swung his blade in a wide arc, ducked under it and moved close, inside the weapon's reach. For the first time he struck back. His fist hit in the knee in a soft spot between the armor plates. Howled with pain and surprise. His knee buckled for just a moment, it was enough. Rolled away before the giant could grab him. He was breathing hard, but he was smiling. "First blood," someone in the crowd whispered. The word spread like fire. First blood to the human. Was furious now. His red eyes burned with rage. He threw away all technique and just attacked wildly, swinging his blade in every direction. He destroyed 3 pillars trying to hit. But wild attacks were exactly what wanted. They were easy to predict, easy to avoid, and each one made more tired. 20 minutes into the fight was staggering. His swings were slower. His breathing was like thunder. He had never been pushed this far, never been made to work this hard. His body was built for short, explosive fights, not long battles of endurance. Humans were different. Humans were built to run, to keep going, to outlast their prey. It was one of the oldest things about the human species, something from before they had spaceships or cities. They were endurance hunters. Was tired too, but he was not broken, not yet. He attacked again, darting in close before could react. This time he kicked the same knee he had punched before. He heard something crack, screamed and fell to one knee. The crowd was completely silent now. This was not possible. This could not be happening. Moved to his side and hit him in the elbow in another gap in the armor. His grip on his blade weakened. Another hit, this time to the back of the knee. Another crack. Tried to grab with his massive hand. Used a technique he had learned in military training, something designed to escape from larger opponents. He twisted, used his own arm as a lever and pushed. The giant fell forward onto his face. In 500 fights had never been knocked down, until now. Did not give him time to recover. He jumped onto his back and wrapped his arms around the giant's neck. It was like trying to choke a tree, but knew where to press. Every creature with blood needs that blood to reach its brain. Tried to stand up, tried to throw off, tried to reach back and grab him. But his injured arms and legs would not work properly. Held on with all his strength, pressing harder and harder. Seconds passed, they felt like hours. Struggles became weaker. His red eyes started to close. His massive body swayed. Then he collapsed. The arena was silent, absolutely silent. No one could believe what they were seeing. Climbed off's unconscious body. He was covered in sweat and blood from small cuts, but he was standing. His legs shook with exhaustion, but they held him up. He walked around to face and put his foot on the giant's chest. "Yield," he said. His voice was rough, but it carried across the silent arena. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then's eyes opened. They were no longer filled with rage. They were filled with something else, something that might have been respect. "I yield," said. The words echoed through the arena. The crowd exploded with noise. Not cheering, not laughing, but shocked shouting. They did not know how to react. Their champion, the undefeated, had lost. To a human. High on her throne, Princess sat very still. Her hands were gripping the arms of her seat so hard that her blue knuckles had turned white. Her golden eyes were fixed on the human standing in the arena below. He should be dead. Every logical thought said he should be dead. Was stronger, faster, better armed, more experienced. By every measure, the human should have lost. But he had not lost, he had won. Not by being stronger. He had won by being smarter, by being patient, by refusing to fight the battle wanted and instead fighting his own battle. He had used his weaknesses as strengths and turned strengths into weaknesses. Stood up, the crowd fell silent again. She walked down from her throne, down the long stairs, through the doors and into the arena. Her silver dress trailed behind her like water. She stopped in front of. They looked at each other for a long time. "You won," said. Her voice was quiet, meant only for him. "I did," said. How did you do it?" Smiled even though it hurt. "I'm human, this is what we do." Shook her head slowly. "My people have been wrong about your species. I have been wrong. Does that mean you'll honor your promise?" Straightened her shoulders. When she spoke again, her voice was loud enough for the whole arena to hear. "Has defeated my champion in fair combat. According to my word and honor, he has earned his freedom and one wish." She looked at him with those golden eyes. "What do you want, human?" The crowd leaned forward. They expected him to ask for treasure, for ships, for power. Some expected him to claim the princess herself, as the original wager had implied. Looked at, he could see the fear hiding behind her pride. She was waiting for him to humiliate her, to take advantage of his victory. But that was not who he was. "I'll tell you my wish tomorrow," he said, "after I've had some rest." It was not the answer anyone expected, blinked with surprise. "Very well," she said. "You will have the finest room on this ship. You will be treated as an honored guest." As guards came to help him leave the arena, looked back at. The giant was sitting up now, watching him. "Good fight," said. Nodded slowly. "Good fight, human." It was the first time had ever said those words to anyone. In the medical bay, doctors treated his injuries while held his hand. She was crying and laughing at the same time. "You crazy fool," she said. "You actually did it." Closed his eyes and smiled. "I told you," he said. "Humans are good at winning impossible battles." Outside the medical bay, Princess stood alone in the hallway. She did not know why she had come here. She just knew she could not stop thinking about the human who had defeated her champion. He had won. He could have asked for anything. He could have taken everything from her. Instead, he had asked for rest. What kind of person did that? She walked away slowly, her mind full of questions she did not know how to answer. Tomorrow, she would learn what the human truly wanted. She was surprised to realize she was looking forward to it. Woke up in a bed softer than anything he had ever felt. The room around him was beautiful, with walls of white stone and windows that showed the stars. It took him a moment to remember where he was and what had happened. He had won. Against all odds, against everything logical, he had defeated and won his freedom. His body ached everywhere. The doctors had healed the worst injuries, but he was still covered in bruises. Every movement reminded him of the fight, but it was a good kind of pain. It was the pain of survival. The door opened and rushed in. She looked like she had not slept at all. "You're awake," she said, relief flooding her voice. "How do you feel?" "Like I fought a mountain and won," said with a small smile. Sat on the edge of his bed. "Everyone is talking about you. The whole ship, probably the whole fleet. The human who beat the unbroken. They're calling you all kinds of names. Some of them are nice, some are not. Let them talk. The princess has asked to see you. Whenever you're ready, she wants to know your wish." Nodded slowly. He had thought about this all night in the moments between sleep and waking. He knew exactly what he wanted to ask for. It was not what anyone expected. He got up, moving carefully because of his injuries, helped him dress in clean clothes that had been left for him. Simple human clothes, not fashion. Someone had been thoughtful. They walked through the bright hallways of the ship. This time was not in chains. This time people moved out of his way. Soldiers who had laughed at him yesterday now looked at him with something like respect, or maybe fear. With aliens, it was hard to tell. The throne room was full when they arrived. It seemed like half the ship had come to hear the human's wish. Nobles in beautiful clothes, soldiers in shining armor, servants hiding in corners. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Princess sat on her throne. She looked different today. She was still beautiful, still proud, but there was something uncertain in her golden eyes. She was waiting for the blow that she was sure would come. Walked forward until he stood before her. The room fell silent. Said formally, "You have earned one wish, anything within my power to give. What do you desire?" Looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked around at all the watching him. He took a deep breath. "I want you to visit Earth," he said. Silence, complete shocked silence. His eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. I want you to come to Earth. See our planet, meet our people, learn who we really are." Ambassador Myra stepped forward. "This is absurd. A princess of the Empire cannot simply travel to some primitive human world." "It's my wish," said calmly. She promised anything within her power. Is it within her power to visit Earth? Held up her hand to silence her advisor. She was staring at like she was seeing him for the first time. "You could have asked for treasure," she said slowly. "You could have asked for ships, for weapons, for territory. You could have asked for—" She stopped, but everyone knew what she meant. He could have asked for her. "I don't want those things," said. "Then why? Why do you want me to visit Earth?" Stepped closer to the throne. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but in the silent room everyone could hear. "Because your people think we're weak. They think we're nothing. They look at humans and see small, fragile creatures who don't belong among the stars." He paused. "I could have killed yesterday. I chose not to. I could have asked for something that would hurt you or your empire. I chose not to, but nothing I say will change what your people think about humanity." He looked directly into his golden eyes. "Actions change minds. Experience changes hearts. If you come to Earth, you will see who we really are. Not the stories your people tell about us, not the jokes they make. The truth. And then you can decide for yourself what you think of humanity." Sat very still. In all her life, no one had ever asked her for something like this. Every wish she had ever granted had been selfish. "Give me gold. Give me power. Give me your body." This human wanted her to learn. And if I come to Earth and still think your species is beneath mine? She asked. Shrugged. Then at least your opinion will be based on truth instead of ignorance. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some were angry. How dare this human speak to a princess that way? Others were curious. What kind of person asked for such a strange thing? Made her decision. Very well, she said. I will visit Earth. I will honor my word. The crowd erupted in surprised conversation. Ambassador Myra looked horrified. Your Highness, please reconsider. The Emperor will not approve of this. The Emperor is not here, said firmly. And I gave my word, do not break their promises. She looked at. How do you propose we travel to Earth? Smiled. You could take your cruiser, but I have a better idea. Come on the Wanderer, see how ordinary humans live. Now even looked shocked, their little cargo ship with a princess. But was nodding slowly. You want me to truly experience human life, not as a visiting royal with servants and guards, as a normal person. Yes. Stood up from her throne. She walked down the steps until she stood in front of. They were almost the same height. Their eyes met. You are the strangest person I have ever met, she said. Is that a yes? For the first time since he had known her, smiled. It was not a cold smile or a mocking smile. It was a real smile, warm and curious. Yes, she said, I will come with you. 3 hours later, the Wanderer left the cruiser and headed toward Earth. Inside the small ship, Princess looked around at the cramped spaces, the worn furniture, the patches where things had been repaired many times. This is very different from what I'm used to, she said. Was still not sure how she felt about having alien royalty on her ship. It's not much, but it's home. Home, repeated the word like she was tasting it. I have palaces on 6 different planets. I don't think any of them feel like home. Was in the pilot seat, guiding them through space. Make yourself comfortable, Princess. It's a long journey to Earth. Please, she said, call me. If I'm going to live like a human, I should start by giving up my titles. The days that followed were strange for everyone. Had never done ordinary things in her life. She had never cooked a meal, washed her own clothes, or fixed a broken machine. On the Wanderer there were no servants. Everyone worked. At first was terrible at everything. She burned food. She broke tools. She got lost in the small ship somehow. But she did not complain. She kept trying. Watched her struggle and succeed and fail and try again. He saw something he had not expected. Behind the cold princess, there was a person who was tired of being treated like a fragile treasure. She wanted to do things for herself. She just had never been allowed to. One evening, they sat together in the ship's tiny kitchen, had managed to cook a simple meal without burning it. She was proud of this small achievement. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. In the arena you could have killed. You had him completely defeated. Why did you let him live? Thought about the question carefully. Because killing him would have been easy. Showing mercy was harder. I don't understand. Humans have learned something over our history. We've learned that destroying your enemies doesn't always solve your problems. Sometimes it just creates more enemies. But showing mercy, giving someone a second chance that can turn an enemy into a friend. Was silent for a long time. Then she said, I received a message today, has resigned as my champion. He said he is not worthy of the title anymore. That's too bad. No, you don't understand. He asked to be assigned to protect human interests in the Empire. He wants to learn more about your people. He wants to understand how you defeated him. Smiled, see, mercy. Shook her head in wonder. Your people are very strange. Call me or just Do, my friends do. Are we friends now? I think we're getting there. They looked at each other across the small table. Something had changed between them. Something was growing. Watched from the doorway and smiled to herself. She had known for 10 years. She had never seen him look at anyone the way he was looking at now. Maybe good things could come from impossible situations after all. 2 weeks later, Earth appeared in the window, blue and green and white, covered in clouds, glowing with lights on the night side. The most beautiful planet had ever seen. "That's your home," she whispered. "That's home," said, ready to see it up close. Took a deep breath. She was nervous, she realized. She had faced battles and political enemies and assassination attempts, but she had never been nervous. Now she was about to walk among humans as one of them, and she was terrified. But she was also excited. "I'm ready," she said. The Wanderer began its descent toward Earth. A new chapter was about to begin. Earth was nothing like had imagined. She had expected primitive buildings and simple people. She had expected to feel superior, to look at humans and see a lesser species struggling to survive. That was what her people had always told her. Instead, she found a world full of wonders. The Wanderer landed in a city called on the southern coast of Korea. Had grown up near here many years ago. It was home, or as close to home as he had. The first thing noticed was the noise. So many people, all talking and laughing and living their lives. Cars moved through streets. Children played in parks. Old people sat on benches and watched the world go by. Everything was alive with motion and energy. "There are so many of you," said as they walked through a busy market. 8 billion on this planet alone, said, plus a few billion more in colonies across the galaxy. 8 billion, could not imagine such numbers. The entire empire had only 12 billion people spread across hundreds of worlds. For the next few weeks, learned what it meant to be human. She ate street food from small vendors and found that she loved the taste of spicy rice cakes. She watched children play games she did not understand and laughed when they tried to teach her. She sat in a small restaurant and listened to an old woman tell stories about the past. She saw poverty too. Not everyone on Earth was rich or comfortable. Some people struggled to survive, but even in the neighborhoods she saw something that surprised her. Hope. Humans never stopped hopping, never stopped trying. They fell down and got back up. They failed and tried again. They helped each other even when they had nothing to spare. One day took her to a museum. It was dedicated to human history, the full story of their species. Walked through the exhibits and saw everything. The wars, the cruelty, the terrible things humans had done to each other. But she also saw the art, the music, the science, the moments when humans had reached for the stars. "We're not perfect," said quietly as they stood before a display about the first human space missions. "We've done terrible things. We've hurt each other in ways that can never be forgiven, but we keep trying to be better. That's what makes us human." Felt tears in her eyes. She had never cried before, considered tears to be weakness. "Why are you showing me all of this?" she asked. "Because you asked who we are. This is who we are, all of it, the good and the bad, the darkness and the light." Turn to face him. In the arena you could have asked for anything. You could have demanded that I become your wife. That was what the wager implied. "I know. Why didn't you?" Looked at her with those calm, tired eyes that had seen so much. "Because I don't want someone who belongs to me because of a contract. If you ever feel anything for me, I want it to be because you chose to, not because you lost a bet." His heart did something strange. It beat faster. Her face felt warm. Before she could say anything, appeared beside them. She had been exploring another part of the museum. "You two should come see this," she said with a knowing smile. She led them to a special exhibit. It was about humans and aliens, about the first contact between Earth and other species. There were pictures and artifacts and stories about how humans had been laughed at, dismissed, underestimated, and how they had survived anyway. How they had earned their place among the stars through determination and courage, and the simple refusal to give up. "This is what I was trying to show you," said. "This is what you needed to see, not the stories your people tell about us." the truth. Read every word in that exhibit. She learned about human heroes who had faced alien armies, human scientists who had solved problems that other species had given up on, human artists whose work had moved beings across the galaxy. She learned about a species that had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities, just cleverness, endurance, and an unbreakable will. When she finished, she stood in silence for a long time. "I was wrong," she finally said. "My people were wrong. Humans are not weak. You are the strongest species I have ever known." That night they sat together on a hillside overlooking the city. The lights below looked like stars that had fallen to Earth. Above them, the real stars stretched across the sky. "I have to go back soon," said. Her voice was sad. "My father will be angry that I've been gone so long. There will be consequences." "Will you be okay?" "I'll survive. I'm good at surviving." She turned to look at him. "I want to thank you. You showed me something I needed to see. You changed how I think about everything." "What will you do when you return?" Smiled. It was a determined smile, the smile of someone who had made a decision. "I'm going to fight for your people. In the Imperial Court, in the Galactic Council, wherever I can make a difference. Humans deserve better than how we've treated you. I'm going to make sure things change." Felt proud of her. In just a few weeks she had grown so much. The cold, bored princess was gone. In her place was someone with purpose, with passion, with fire. "That's a big task," he said. "It won't be easy." "Nothing worth doing is easy. You taught me that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then spoke again. "I have something to confess." "What?" "When I challenged you in the arena, I was hoping you would lose. I wanted a human servant to entertain me. I wanted to prove that your species was beneath mine." She looked at her hands. "I was cruel and arrogant and wrong." "That was a different person," said gently. "The I know is not cruel." "How can you forgive me so easily?" "Because holding on to anger doesn't help anyone. Because people can change. Because I believe you're better than you used to be." Felt those strange tears again. This time she let them fall. "I don't want to leave," she whispered. "For the first time in my life I've felt like myself. Here with you I'm not a princess or a symbol or a political tool. I'm just—" Reached out and took her hand. Her blue skin was cool against his warmth. "You can come back," he said. "Whenever you want, wherever I am, there will always be a place for you on the Wanderer." Squeezed his hand tightly. "I will come back," she promised. "I don't know when, but I will." The next morning, a shuttle arrived to take home. She said goodbye to First. "Take care of him," she said. "He's terrible at taking care of himself." Laughed. "I know. I've been doing it for 10 years. Then turned too. They stood facing each other, neither wanting to be the first to speak. "This isn't goodbye," said. "This is just until next time." "Until next time," agreed. Leaned forward and kissed him softly on the cheek. Then, before she could change her mind, she turned and walked onto the shuttle. As it rose into the sky, watched until it disappeared among the clouds. In the years that followed, Princess became one of humanity's greatest friends. She fought political battles in the Imperial Court. She defended human interests in the Galactic Council. She changed minds and opened doors that had been closed for generations. It was not easy. She faced enemies, plots, even attempts on her life, but she never gave up. She had learned that from the humans. And sometimes, when her duties allowed, a shuttle would appear in the sky above whatever planet happened to be on. A tall woman with blue skin and golden eyes would step out and smile. "I'm back," she would say, and would smile back and say, "Welcome home." Because somewhere between a challenge in an arena and a journey across the stars, they had found something neither of them expected. Not a contract or an obligation, something freely chosen. Something that felt very much like love. On a small cargo ship called the Wanderer, flying through the endless darkness of space, there was always a seat waiting for a princess who had learned to be human. And in the great halls of the empire, there was a princess who dreamed of returning to the stars. That is the story of how a human defeated a champion, won a princess's heart, and changed the galaxy forever. Not through strength, not through weapons, not through conquest. Through something much more powerful. Through being human.